What if Bug Bite was in Gen 1 OU? Now, I don't know for sure if Bug Bite's gonna be in Generation Jumbo Season 2. At the moment, it is not. But one of my main concerns with Poison Jab being in Gen 1 is gonna be that it will make the bug types, just make them take a massive blow that I really don't want them to have. I really don't want Pokemon like Glycopod or Vespiquen that have a lot of interesting things going for them, but because of just poison types getting a massive buff and having a real stab move they can use to hit people super effectively with, that just feels like it's just not very fair and goes against the entire point of Generation Jumbo Season 2. However, Pokemon like Vespiquen will have attack order, not to mention poison types won't be used a lot. In fact, their only real niche would probably be either hitting decently hard, which a lot of other types can do, or hitting bug types exactly. So it might not be needed. But in the case that poison types are too dominant, I will be adding Bug Bite as an emergency. And I'm choosing Bug Bite and not X-Scissor for one main reason. I want the bug types to be able to defend themselves, but I don't want them to thrive. Like, having a 60 base power move and an 80 base power move is huge. It's what causes you from O-Coing Executor or not. And that's just not fun. Having a super strong bug move that's just body slam but it can O-Co psychic types, there's nothing entertaining about that. That's just boring. So that's why I'm going with Bug Bite instead. And luckily, even though it's weaker, bug types would almost certainly appreciate it. Now, the main ones would be Scyther and Parasect, because unfortunately, Pinsir here can't get Bug Bite. Even though, oh, look at those jaws, that is terrifying, and he should be able to have it, but he doesn't. So instead, we have these other guys, and how good would they be? Well, I think Scyther and Parasect would be the best ones by far. Scyther, probably the best one. It has Sword Stance, Hyper Beam. It's incredibly fast. Not to mention, it now has a move other than Weak Attack it can use to attack Gengar. And because of Poison being weak to Bug in Gen 1, it means that you can hit Gengar neutrally. So if you get a Sword Stance up, you can actually hit Gengar for decent damage, which isn't bad at all. I'm not sure if that gives Scyther a niche or not, but it very well might, and I think that's very cool. So what else do we have here? We have Beedrill. Yeah, Beedrill is unfortunately not cooking still. I'm not even sure if I can afford to run Bug Bite, because even in 7U, Beedrill suffers a lot, and you need both Agility and Sword Stance to outspeed everything, but you also need Mega Drain in order to take care of the rock types, and you need Hyper Beam to actually do damage with your Sword Stance. So, yeah, Beedrill does not get the cook at all. He is still suffering just as much as he normally would, but technically he becomes 1% more useful, so that is technically a win. Butterfree, I'd say, doesn't need it. It has Sweet Powder and Stun Spore. Psychic already does pretty good damage, and Mega Drain is good for, the rock types. So, Bug Bite is interesting, but with a attack stat that's just 45, probably won't be needed. Venomoth that has a little bit more attack, but I'd say it's basically the exact same thing, because Venomoth is just Butterfree but with more stats. Parasect, I think, is by far the second most likely Pokemon to use Bug Bite and use it well, because it technically has a bigger moveset than Scyther. So Sword Stance, Spore, and then Hyper Beam. It's not as bad as it might look. And I already like to use Parasect and Ladder. It dies to Jinx, but luckily Jinx might just go for the Blizzard instead of just going for a Lovely Kiss if you lead with it. Not to mention, it can survive a non-critical Starmie Blizzard, and putting Starmie to sleep is very huge. In getting Bug Bite, Parasect would definitely appreciate. Just being able to get very decent chip on the Psychic types is alone good, But if you get a Sword Stance, you can actually just legitimately threaten them. Scyther, of course, is the best. And Pinsir theoretically would be the best if you got the move. But I like this buff actually. And I like how unlike X-Scissor, it's not just a move you spam. Because against anything that isn't weak to it, it doesn't really hit for that hard. Which I think makes for a more healthy and interesting metagame. A lot of people tell me to add like Close Combat or X-Scissor to like Generation Jumbo seasons. And it's just boring. You don't just give Pokemon everything they need. They need to have weaknesses if you want it to be interesting. People have even suggested like even moves like U-Turn. Let me just say, pivoting in a gen where there's absolutely no entry hazards is cancer. That's why I think if I ever were to have a season with pivoting, it would also be the same season with entry hazards. Because that's the only way you can make it somewhat interesting, and even then, probably not. But yeah, we have 3 replays to go over today. The first one's going to be how good is Bug Bite when you're not like using it or like setting up with it. Starmie, as you can imagine, still does a lot of damage, but Bug Bite's still a 2-hit KO, so not bad at all. Now granted, it's still a Starmie, so you might get crit and you might just die. That's very unfortunate, but that doesn't always happen. So what if you get a Sword Stance off? That's gotta be interesting, right? I would say so. Also as a reminder, Parasect could survive a non-crit Blizzard, so that wasn't just like getting like lucky. With the Sword Stance, you can do pretty good damage. Like as you can see here, you do have a chance to use HP, which is Bug Bite, which is really good. And then obviously like Scyther can Revenge Kill you with just Slash. So something to sweep, and you get a chance to get that off that Sword Stance. You can do good damage, and a lot of the Psychic types have to fear you. And for a sprite that cool, I wish Scyther had this in the actual game. It would be able to, like, be so much better. And whatever tier Scyther ends up in, I think just having Bug Bite alone would make it great in that tier. If it's not great already in PU or whatever. I don't know what tier Scyther is currently in. And obviously we gotta show Executor. And yeah, like, Bug Bite isn't just a OHKO without a crit. Which I think it makes the metagame a lot more healthy when when Executor can actually have a chance to do its thing. Nothing is interesting about Executor just, for the most part, being removed from the metagame just because of a quad weakness. That's exactly what happened to Hydreigon in Gen 6. By the way, stop commenting about how to pronounce the name, I don't care. But like, I don't think anyone liked how the Fairy weakness made, that Pokemon just less viable. Did anyone enjoy that? I don't think so. So I'm not sure why you would want to put Executor through the same fate. What do you guys think about Bug Bite? Do you think it would be a good move in Gen 1? Where do you think Scyther would be on the viability rankings? And also, this is probably the most important one, should Bug Bite be included in Generation Jumbo Season 2? Or do you think the poison types won't be a big enough threat to where it'll be needed? Let me know in the comments below. But until next time, this is Groundback, and I look forward to hearing from you.